welcome in everyone. We are anything coast to coast. I'm Brett. This is my good friend and co-host AJ.
Yeah,
And
we're two college friends that live on opposite sides of the country and just decided to start a podcast. So we're going to chat about our interests and hobbies from movies, TV shows, music, sports, and beyond.
yeah, anything interesting happening in your neck of the woods over there?
Uh, ooh, um, got some big news. Maybe I'll let you know next week. Just with some house hunting and stuff like that, we might have a particular opportunity, but just waiting for things to be official. So more on that to
Did you
come.
put
But
put down a nice little cash offer or something?
I
All
wish, yeah,
cash. Gave him the
freaking
briefcase.
everyone that we've looked at, right, or thought about submitting an offer, um, has always there's been other offers, right, that have come in above asking, like way above asking, and all in cash. So it's like, well, that's just the most depressing thing in the world
Hey,
because
I am a
who
millennial
has
and I have $2,000 cash. How
yeah,
how do you?
who has 600,000 or more to like drop on a house in cash? I'm like, how the heck am I gonna compete with this?
Well, all the rich baby boomers who just sold their $10,000 house that they bought.
Yeah, yeah. So more on that to come hopefully next week. But yeah, other than that, just gearing up for hockey season for our high school team.
The
It
ice
starts
fairies.
yes. That starts in about 2 weeks or so. So just getting like all the finalized schedules and all that stuff. So getting busy this time of year. What about you?
It's been interesting in Colorado to say the least. We had the hottest October on record, and then it
Interesting.
immediately ended and went straight into a 5-day snowstorm. So
Yeah, it's
the
fun.
resorts are now opened up. Things are flowing. Went and
It's
did
cool.
my first day skiing.
How was that?
It was very underwhelming. We did it because we were like, it just snowed for 5 days. Let's go check it
Hmm.
out.
Hmm.
There was about 5 runs open, and we did the 5 runs in I think an hour. So took us an
Oh,
hour and a
really?
half to drive there. Skied for an
Okay.
hour, and then turned around and came back, and we're home by noon.
Was it just not enough snow on the ground in the mountains for that, or
They
like
just
what?
don't have enough open yet. They're in the snowstorm has gotten the places where they can start opening stuff, but probably need one more snowfall before mountains can be really open. We did Winter Park. It was fun. Good little
Okay.
warm up day, but that's about it for now. Probably won't go again until closer to Christmas. Need a couple
Really?
more snowfalls.
Okay.
Just not enough
Huh.
open yet.
I
They
say we
don't open
gotta.
like we were in Winter Park and we took lifts that were going up like a quarter of the way up the mountain.
Oh, okay. All right. So okay, that makes sense.
That's it. So it
I
was
say
almost like East Coast skiing. Like you were doing a run in like 2 minutes and then back on the lift.
that's fair. Yeah, we gotta make it out there. Hopefully this year. It just depends on what happens, but
Well, after
be fun to.
January 24th, my schedule is open.
Well, that works with me. I'm game. We'll talk about it.
We shall. We shall. All right. For anyone who doesn't know, we are huge challenge people.
Yes.
Partially inspired by our significant others, but for those of you who haven't watched Challenge, it's actually a good time in the sense that it's like Big Brother meets Survivor. Big Brother in the sense that they're all in a house living together, they're getting drunk, shenanigans ensue. And then
Yes.
Survivor in the terms of you got head to head eliminations and challenges, and you can win immunity, and not exactly all the time, but it's different every season. But we like the challenge, it's fun. Where I wanted to start with this is we've been watching recently. We're not exactly caught up, so I'm not going to say spoiler warning to anyone out there because I'm pretty sure we're about a month behind. So if you're watching this
Yeah.
and we're spoiling something for you, that's your own damn fault. Um, this past week was actually a decent episode, but the week before that we watched, the worst episode of all time. Just so bad. And for those of you who don't know, this season that they're on right now, they're doing eras. So with eras, they have 4 eras because this is season 40 of the challenge. They obviously
It's
don't
pretty
do
crazy.
one a year, it's multiple a year, and they squeeze them in there. But So they got people from the start of the show, and then each era kind of has 10 contestants.
Every 10
And
seasons.
yeah, they eliminated two of my favorite people on the season, and they did it with the dumbest elimination challenge I've ever seen. I don't.
Yeah, you talking
What would you want to describe the challenge? Because it was pretty bad.
you're talking about the nail one, right?
Yes, the nails.
Yeah. So, and I will preface this with, I never start. I started watching the challenge, what, maybe like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, right when
Watch
we
like
started doing
4 or 5 seasons.
Yes, yeah, I've caught basically the past 3 or 4, but yeah. So this challenge, right, to send people home. Um, CT was one of the competitors, and I forget who he went against. Do you remember?
He
Was it
went.
Derek?
Was it Nehemiah?
Yeah, maybe it was Nehemiah.
Yeah, but
Um,
both big dudes. When I mean like
yes,
big dudes, like Nehemiah is smaller than CT, but Nehemiah's at least 5'10" to 6 foot range, maybe 6'2". It's hard to tell on TV, but he's at least
yeah.
220. Like he's a big boy.
Oh, I say you can tell CT is a big boy now
Well,
as well. He's
CT
got the
used to
dad
have
bod.
that, but CT's now closer to like 45, and he's got a dad bod, so he's got a
Yeah,
significant gut. But CT is probably closer to like 240. And
yeah.
what makes the challenge so great is a lot of their eliminations were
Our
physical
fiscal.
eliminations. And what I mean by that is like just running at each other, wrestling, fun stuff. So we got two big guys, and then what do we get, AJ?
Yeah, so as Brett was saying, right, usually you get the massive like wrestling matches or what they call hall brawls, right? So where both guys are in a confined space, right, and they both collide with each other, kind of like that, and one has to get past the other to like ring a bell. So like I think that's what we were all
Just
expecting, you know,
100% what we wanted. The
from
two of the biggest dudes on the season. I wanted to see them
yeah,
bang heads.
yeah, or something like that, like something physical, right? Because that's kind of the fun thing about it. Um, and we got what I can describe as a home improvement type challenge, um,
Basically,
where there were 2 walls set up for each competitors and 100 nails that were nailed into each wall that they had to remove with a hammer. And then subsequently, after they removed the nails, they had to then hammer in 100 nails, and the first one to do that would win.
yeah, so
And
dumb.
maybe the most underwhelming challenge that I've,
Underwhelming when you get CT and Nehemiah and you want
yes,
them to do something physical, and then they're
yes,
hammering nails into the wall. And then on the girls' side of thing, forget, I think it was Tina and Emily.
yeah,
Emily is in tremendous shape. She's CrossFit guru, like in 20 times better shape than Tina, who's, like 45 and
yeah.
is only showing up on this show because she probably got told that she gets free booze in the house. And she beats Emily. So Emily and CT, like two of my favorite people on the show, get eliminated because they can't hammer in nails faster.
Yeah, no, well,
So dumb.
the biggest thing was like hammering in the nails things, whatever. It's like the removing the nails, like both just so boring to watch. Except
Yeah,
for
also
Tina,
that. Boring.
was it Tina? Yeah, Tina had the good approach, and somehow she knocked down
Well,
like,
I'm pretty sure Tina's nails weren't
oh
hammered
no,
in all the way.
it was Rachel,
Was it
right?
Rachel?
Yeah, it was Rachel
Either
because she
way,
won.
her
Yeah,
nails were not in all the way because she goes up and she just scrapes them off instead of
yeah,
using like anything, and
yeah.
so disappointing.
Super boring, especially for somebody that like I would say I'm still new to the challenge, right? Like I've only watched 3 seasons. We watch it every Wednesday together, us two and our spouses. Um, so yeah, it was very underwhelming, to say the least. I think a lot of the challenges, or eliminations, I should say, kind of have changed since what's her name broke her nose from
There was
the
that.
slingshot.
Um,
Uh,
I forget his name, but he's a British dude. He did a hall brawl against.
yeah,
Uh,
but they
did
still
he?
they still do the hall brawl.
Yeah. Well, they did. This was before they started adding like barriers and all these
Yeah,
other things to it. He broke his finger going against Fessel
yeah,
in the hall brawl, and then they've really toned back on the physicality of these events, which is like I get they're trying to protect the contestants,
yeah.
but that's not why I'm watching.
Yeah, and I think too, like, when you're signing up for a show like that, right? Or like even like a Survivor, right? That like there are chances that like that's gonna like you could get injured, right? Especially with like the challenge, right? Where it's been so physical from what I've seen throughout the history, right? With the hall brawls or with um the one where they both hold on to the bar, right? And then
Oh,
wrestle each
pole
other.
wrestling. Yeah.
Yeah. Stuff like that, right? Like it's physical, for the most part, right? Physical challenges, um, even like the endurance with the finals, right, where they're running a lot and having to move,
Still throwing
heavy
some physical
weights.
stuff in there.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like it's physical, it's demanding on your body and like all that stuff. So I get I get when Olivia got and for those people that don't know, it was what 2 seasons ago, I
Just two
think,
seasons ago.
right?
You can describe
Ride
it.
or Ride
People.
or Die.
It also happened on the Amazing Race too. People
Yes,
probably have
that's
seen the Amazing Race one. It was what they did the slingshot with the watermelon, and it went
yeah,
and then it flung back and hit the person in the face. Basically the
yeah,
same thing, except they used like a golf ball
yeah,
instead of a watermelon, and it hit here, right, like literally at the top of the nose, like right where your forehead meets,
yeah.
and it shattered her whole like skull fractured, cheekbones fractured from the impact. And because of where the size of the ball and where it hit, if it had hit her eye, she'd be dead.
Yeah, and I don't think they were wearing really any protective
They had no
stuff
protective
too,
gear on. It hit
right?
her square in the
So
forehead.
I get that, right? Because like, all right, like that's dangerous, right? You've seen it with, well, every time I watch the Amazing Race one, I laugh because it's just so funny. The the one with Olivia, that one was I think less funny, obviously because I feel like that did some
There
serious
was like
damage to her.
blood gushing instantly, and it
Yes,
was hard to laugh when you see that.
yeah, but like the watermelon one on the Amazing Race was maybe the funniest thing. Just like watching that over and over again, so funny.
Well, you did mention that, with certain reality TV shows, you got to expect to do certain things. Obviously, in the challenge, you're expecting to do physical stuff. Like you're expecting to
Yeah,
do there, which is why I always get on them when they show up and they're out of shape and they're like, "Oh, I just want to make a final and I want to win." It's like
yeah.
you ain't look at the people around you. They're like that guy could do like 6,000 push-ups. You can't do one. Like, do you really think
Yeah.
this is a competition? But with other shows, I have evaluated them, and shows have an important skill that you need to have for every show. Amazing Race,
Okay.
you got to know how to drive a stick shift. It's
Hmm.
absolutely mandatory. Like, do
That's
not
fair.
go on that show if you don't know how to drive a stick. You're going to get put in a country where they're going to put you in a manual car, and if you don't know how to drive it, you're screwed. Uh,
That's
the
fair.
the challenge, and I would also say Survivor on this one. Got to know how to swim.
Yeah,
It
that
sounds
and like
basic, but so many people don't know how to swim.
I feel like it's like that and like the fear of like heights is like another
Yeah,
random one because they always do heights, right? And
the
then
heights on the
like
challenge for sure.
another thing I feel like is like basic math. Like I feel like some of these people can't do basic math,
They
and
can't.
it's
The
like,
challenge also dumbs it down. Like every time I see a math
yeah,
problem, it's never like, oh, take the derivative of this or like
yeah,
find x. It's literally like what's 20 plus 55.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they might like throw it at you kind of quickly, but like yeah, it's all like simple addition. Um, I also find it funny too that like some of these people are just like so out of shape and like can't run a final kind of thing.
Yeah, but they
Um,
want to so badly, and that's all they talk
no,
about all season. And you're just like, you can't run 5 miles. The final's going to
like
be like 10 miles up a hill, or
yeah,
up
like
not a hill, a mountain.
I get like CT, like he's going on that show, right? Just because he's one of the best ones to do it, right? He's
Yeah,
like so like I get him being on there, and I'm sure he's getting paid pretty well to go on there, and like yeah, like if I make a final, awesome. If I win the extra money, sure, but like it's not necessarily for that era anymore. It's really like the new 3 to 4 eras, right? That we have now that are like young people that like I don't know. I feel like some of them are still just so out of shape and like get gassed that it's crazy.
it is
Um,
weird when you think about it. Like they're reality TV stars. Like
yeah,
this is all they do.
yeah.
Some of them you can tell they take it very seriously and they're in great shape. And others you're just like, what did you do for the past
Well,
6 months?
it's also like I feel like I would just be running like marathons to like train. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
you need some strength, right, and stuff like that. But like, I feel like the biggest thing is like the endurance,
Well, because you're going to
and
do a
also,
mini final and then you're going to do a real
yeah,
final, and both of them are going to incorporate at least like 5 to 10 miles of running.
yeah. And then I feel like the other thing too is like a lot of these people like have trouble eating stuff. So for those that don't watch
Yeah.
either, is like they do like a gross eating challenge, right? Where they'll eat like an eyeball, or like they'll eat like a tuna, blended up tuna, right, with like hot sauce in it, which is gross, right? But it's like just plug your nose, put it down your throat, right, and then if you throw it up, you throw it up. Like who cares? But like just
They also don't get penalized for throwing it up. So
yeah,
just go to
or just
town.
put it in your mouth and pretend it like you're gonna drink it and then just throw it up. Like who cares?
Another
Oh
skill that so many people on the challenge don't have, and it's always hilarious. They don't know how to paddle boats,
yeah, or like rowboats or
rowboats,
like canoes.
anything that involves paddling. You watch
Yeah,
some of the people, and you're like, this is not that difficult. You
yeah,
can do
I agree.
this. They teach
I feel
this
like
to kids at summer camp when they're 8 years old. You can paddle a boat.
we're shitting on the challenge, but like we I do
We do like
genuinely
it.
and I do enjoy it. It is. I never thought I would be a reality TV show person, as Abby laughs at me. Um, but it is kind of fun to watch because it is like you get the social aspect. It does play into a factor, and like a lot of these people too, right, are friends like outside of the show, and then you have some people that totally hate each other, like Cara Maria and Laurel, right?
Oh my
Like
god, I was gonna
they,
ask you. So now that you've watched 3 seasons,
yeah.
what's your opinion of Laurel?
I liked her at first. I think this season has kind of swayed me a little bit to not liking her as much because I feel like
She's a big old
she,
biatch.
she does suck at times, and she hates Cara Maria, which like I know she says like oh we're friends and all this stuff, but there's no way that there's any friendship there.
Well,
Um,
Cara Maria is a dum dum, and then she always like tries to like go around Laurel or like apologize or
fair,
like do something. And it's like she doesn't like you. Just don't fucking talk to her. Like you're
yeah,
not friends. Like just it's okay.
it's it does suck though that I mean like they're on the same era, right? So they have to work together. But yeah, I would say that like I've definitely gotten more sour towards Laurel. Um, no, I just don't like her. Like, she just comes across as, like you said, bitchy and
Well,
kind of
my big
awful.
issue with Laurel is she thinks she's the smartest person in the room. She's
Yeah,
not,
fair.
and she's unbelievably stubborn. So she thinks she's right all the time, and
Yeah,
she is far from it a lot. And it's one of the more frustrating things to watch her get in arguments with people, and it's just like a record on repeat. She just repeats the same thing 20 times. And it's like just because you say it louder than someone else does not mean you're right. You're very
yeah,
wrong.
yeah. It's well, we'll see. What out of the remaining contestants,
I was gonna ask
who
you.
do you think who do you think's gonna win? Or like, give me like five, like top five that you think that could win.
I'm gonna just go one guy and one girl. Give me
Okay, okay.
Kylan for the guys.
I like that. I like it's a good pick.
Girls is tricky. I'm thinking I'm probably gonna go Cara Maria. Just
Okay, I like it.
she'll probably get
Um,
outnumbered and get like voted out before the end because people like to gang up on her. But she,
yeah,
out of the girls, she definitely has the most endurance, and I have the most faith in her completing that final.
yeah, that's fair. Um, I was gonna say Kyland because I do think he's underrated in a way. Um, but I guess I will go with um, I'll go Nehemiah. I feel like he's also like kind of underrated a little bit too.
I don't know if he can
Maybe this.
run, but we'll see.
Well, so I don't know about his social game as much. So I know he's got
Yeah,
the alliance with Corey, but after that, like, what
Corey's
was it?
also a
Corey and
terrible
Josh?
person to be aligned with. Corey is not helpful.
Fair. Yeah. But so like social game wise, I don't know if that'll help him. Or his social game will help him or not. But I think he could be a dark horse. And then for girls, I'll do Rachel. Last one from Era One. I think now that it's a individual game, right? She will somehow, make more alliances, right, and be fine.
Oh
So
yeah,
I'll
didn't they get
go.
rid of the errors last
Yeah.
week? Is free for
Yep.
all now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Watch,
Card Maria
watch.
might be screwed. I might have picked a bad woman there. She's probably
No,
gonna get picked off.
I think Laurel. If you picked Laurel, I think that would have been a bad one. But
I
I
don't
think
think
Cara
Laurel can
Maria's.
run. I think Laurel can do like the physical stuff. I just don't think she could do the final.
I still think like so I think she's one. Yeah, you would want to eliminate, right, Laurel. I think Cara Maria has more friends right in the house, so I think she'll go farther and potentially make the final.
See, I would say the opposite because of where we are in the season. Like, you keep Laurel around because, yeah, she's scary in eliminations, but I'm pretty confident I'm beating Laurel running wise in the final. And you
I
probably
guess.
get rid of Cara Maria because, yeah, Cara Maria is like less intimidating than Laurel and might have more friends, but she's probably going to beat everyone in the final if she gets there.
That's fair. That's fair.
Okay, well, AJ, I can see you've been doing some collecting. Want to tell us what you got going on?
Yeah. So
Show and
as you
tell.
know, I got some. I can show some.
Go
So
ahead.
I'm at my work desk, and I am a little bit of a collector. Not terribly. But I did just get a little Funko. I have. I will preface this with I have stopped collecting these as much. I only really get like one. I used to go a little overboard, but this one I thought was just fitting because it's
Oh,
Deadpool on the
it's
Zamboni.
Deadpool on the Zamboni.
So I thought
That's
this
good.
was a perfect combination of one of my
Did the
favorite.
Zamboni come with, or do you have to get that
Yeah,
separately?
no, it's Deadpool on the Zamboni, which is I think
Solid.
one of the funniest things from the first movie. Um, so it's for New York Comic Con, I think. They came out with it, so I was like, I gotta get that because it's you know my interest of hockey, right, and one of my favorite superheroes, which is amazing. Um, and then I have collected some cards here and there just from over the years. But I figured,
Are you gonna
I'd
get
see
into
what.
like serious card trading and like go to conventions and
No,
swindle
no,
deals?
that's not me. That's my brother. That's Billy. He's the one that is the card collector. I pretty much only have two that I've collected over the past couple of years. One of them being my favorite hockey player, Joe Sakic, and then Henrik Lundqvist is my other one. But yeah, it's just a few cards here and there. My big things are pretty much comics, right? So when I find a good deal, I try to get one. But nothing as of late. So what about you? What have you collected? I know you're a Lego person at times.
I am Lego. I've toned it back. I got my favorite Lego.
Brett is walking. He's left video frame.
My R2D2.
Ooh, that's
Very
pretty
nice.
nice.
It took a long time. We had a treehouse one too. That was my favorite for a while.
How long did it take
But
you to build?
well, that's a tough question in the sense that like I could probably have done that in a day, like,
Uh,
but I space it out. So I think I probably did it in like 4 or 5 sittings. So it probably took me like 12 hours ish.
that's not terrible.
It's not bad. I like the Legos. They work as decorations. Then you take them down and you don't feel bad because you still have them. And I always save like the books, being like, oh, what if I want to rebuild it? I never rebuild them. I don't. But they're all collecting dust somewhere.
I see the was that Groot right there behind you?
Where's this guy? Is my pen holder.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, behind
interesting.
me. Groot.
Yeah. Huh.
What are you talking about? What's back here?
Well, I didn't. I can kind of see what you got. What is that?
This is kind of an assortment of stuff. That's a stuffed animal that I got in South Africa. Uh, I like to collect turtles when I go places, so some turtles up there.
How did
Got
I not know this? You collect
Red
turtles?
Guardian, uh, my class mug from high school, a baseball from my baseball team. One season I batted 530, so that's my ball to commemorate me
It's pretty
tearing the cover off the ball. We got a Captain America. Oh, Millennium Falcons down there too. It's too much stuff to pick up though, but
good.
we got
As you can
stuff
see,
there.
the mountain of books that Abby has collected,
Oh,
and I
there's
have
a mountain
collected,
of books.
but
If you look at mine at the top, you can see my nice assortment of fantasy football trophies up there. I really like
yeah,
that section. That's real nice. It's
no
real nice.
no one cares about your fantasy team.
I like them. But without further ado, I want to move on to our next topic because this is the topic that we're talking about mostly today. And the topic is
Yeah.
worst movies we've watched, because
Yes.
I watched a doozy the other day. It's
Okay.
people might have seen it. It's on Netflix. It's called Time Cut.
I have
Hot
not.
damn, it terrible. Holy shit. Um, Premise of the movie: it's a Halloween time travel slasher movie. So
Okay.
it gets if you're a time travel nerd, this is for sure not the movie to watch.
Okay.
In
Okay.
the sense that time travel rules are used all over. I'm the type of person where time travel. There's two theories. It's a linear timeline, like one
Okay.
timeline. So
Yep.
anything that you go back in the past to do already happened in that time. So like if you went back to 1950 and did a bunch of things, you wouldn't change anything because you were already there in 1950. You were destined to go back in time. The timeline, it's one timeline, it's consistent, it goes
Got it.
forward. You can't change
Got it.
anything. Everything you
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
in the past creates the events of the present. That type deal. That's
Got
one
it.
version. And then I think the other proper version would be well, the other I would say there's three. Then there's the butterfly effect where you're on
Yeah.
one
Yeah. Yeah.
timeline, but everything you change in the past affects your
Has an
present.
effect.
And then obviously the third one would be everything you do creates an alternate timeline. So that's more of multiple dimensions. Everything you do, every decision you
Marvel.
make creates a different timeline all over the place. This one blended all three of those into one,
Okay.
which does not work.
That's very confusing.
Yeah. But before we get into that, that's going to be my number one worst movie of all time. But first, I want to go down the
Wow.
list of the ones before that. And AJ,
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to comment on these I go through. AJ's going to give us five as well. But we're going to start off with number five. Probably one of the more disappointing movies in my mind that I have ever seen. Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi.
And
I'll say this because I know most people are going to say, oh, The Last Jedi wasn't that bad. The bad one was Episode 9. And I disagree
yeah.
in the sense that everything that people think is wrong with Episode 9 is actually an issue that was brought up in Episode 8. So, AJ, we're going to play a little game. Like, name something that you didn't like about Episode 9.
Uh. So I will preface this with I still think episode 9 is worse, but
Exactly. I'm
um,
going to prove you wrong right here.
but I will say the whole plot with I forget what the Asian lady's name is. That's like the mechanic. But
Mm-hmm.
like she had this whole plot right in episode 8, and then episode 9 she's in like what 2 scenes.
Yeah, because she sucked.
Well, yes, but fair. But like so I think and like the whole like killing
Most useless character
Snoke.
in the world introduced in Episode 8. So, the fact that she had two scenes in Episode 9, honestly, good. That was an improvement.
I mean, like you still could have done a little bit more, but like
Why?
that's
She shouldn't have been introduced, period.
I don't disagree, but I still feel like as a writer or director, right? I guess it's more the director. Like you still got to have some kind of continuity. And I know she was in 2 scenes, but like I feel like it just makes that whole thing, which I know it wasn't the same director, right? It wasn't J.J. Abrams, right? He directed 9, right? 9 and 7.
We didn't have to get into the writers and directors part of this because that was the
But
worst part
this
of it. Three different writers and three different directors.
correct. But this the whole reason, right? Is I get right having different visuals and like different takes on everything, right? But you gotta have the continuity. So if I was a producer, I'd be like, look, you gotta have some kind of continuity with her. Like we already built her up in episode 8, and for this just to kind of die off in 2 scenes, it just
Why
doesn't make
not?
sense.
Sure, that's
Because like,
fine.
but no, see, I disagree. Because you in episode 8, rightfully or wrongfully, they built her up a little bit, right? So you gotta have
Yeah,
her have
that
some kind of
sucked.
fuller
That part
storyline.
in Episode 8 was absolutely horrendous. They should have killed her.
I-
They should have never brought her back.
Well, that's fine if you kill her at the end of episode 8, but like the fact that you had her, right? You had to have a little bit more than just 2 scenes or 2 throwaway scenes, basically, in
No,
the
you
movie.
don't
I
because
think
she's not
so.
essential to the plot at all. So why
Fair,
does she have to
but
be in
again,
more scenes when we're trying to conclude a trilogy?
but but you still brought her in episode 8 to like help with the plot, and then it just goes to the wayside.
All right,
My
we'll
my
skip that
bigger
one.
issue,
Go to your next
but
issue with Episode
but
9.
but my bigger issue is with episode 8. They killed off Snoke, right? And you're like, oh, okay, like what is it? Kylo Ren's gonna be the big bad now, right? Like he's gonna
Yeah,
be all this stuff, and then you all of a sudden have Palpatine come back out of nowhere, and it's like,
Right,
oh,
exactly.
okay,
But trust me, that's not an issue with episode 9. That was an issue with episode 8. Palpatine coming back could have easily been explained. Like there is a path to do it. People will know this if you've read any of the Star Wars expanded universe. What they did with Palpatine and the whole cloning thing, they didn't make that up for episode 9. That was in the expanded universe where after uh,
hmm
episode 6 there is actually a big story where they use Luke's hand to help clone a force sensitive being so that Palpatine can come back. That actually happens in the books. Like that is real. So they didn't make this up for this, meaning that if it was something that was laid out, it should have been set up in episode 8. Like I'm not going to diss on 9 because
see,
they needed to have a villain, and Kylo Ren is clearly set up for a redemption arc. So you killed Snoke in 8. Kylo Ren set up for a redemption arc. Who's the bad guy in 9?
so I
But
disagree with
that's the
this.
thing. Like
So
it's not Nine's fault. It's Nine's fault because that's where people saw it. But you have to understand the
it's
lead up to Episode 9. Episode 9 was given nothing. They said there's
I
no
disagree.
bad guy anymore. There's no bad people. This guy who is the big bad is actually going to do a redemption arc, so he's not a bad guy. So you got
I
to come up with
disagree.
another bad guy. So they came up with Palpatine, and I think it works if you explain in Episode 8 that Snoke is a clone of Palpatine.
I disagree because I think if you go from episode 8, right, Kylo Ren kills Snoke, he takes over. You make him the bad for episode 9. Don't have a redemptive story, right? That's the whole Darth Vader thing, right? Where
But also, you just
he's
tapped on
he's
another
good
thing.
and then turns bad.
I think them killing Snoke in Episode 8 was fucking terrible.
No, see, I actually don't mind it, right? Because
Why?
it's like, all right, Kylo Ren's actually gonna be the bad. There isn't gonna be no
No.
redemptive story,
It's
right?
not
He
not
has
about
this,
Kylo Ren being the bad. It was
but
more about
but
that we have this ominous villain who is just a
fair.
mysterious figure in Episode 7. So you build him up for Episode 8, and we meet him in Episode 8. And we want to know more about him. We want to know where he's from, how did he come to power, all this stuff, and then we just cut
Mhm.
him in half. That is so
Fair.
disappointing.
But to go from that, right, to be like, oh, Snoke was the big bad, Kylo Ren killed him, right, to episode 9 where it's like, oh, he just comes out of nowhere, Palpatine. Like there's like
Because you knew the whole time that Kylo Ren was getting a redemption arc. You're not a
that's
Solo.
but that's
They
what
were
I'm
never going to
saying.
make Kylo Ren be the big bad for Episode 9. That was never going to happen, which is why
So
it's Episode 8's fault. It's not 9's fault for having
I
no other
disagree.
character to fucking use as the villain when they murdered them all in Episode 8.
This is where I think you're wrong because if they were smart, they would have kept him as being a villain. They tried to do the redemptive thing, and that's why they brought in Palpatine. If they just kept it as Kylo Ren being bad, right, still having the connection with Rey, sure, whatever, right, because he could toe that line, but just made him bad, I think it would have made more sense. Don't bring in Palpatine, right? I get it, like
Oh,
in
I'm
the
not. I'm
grand.
not saying I like Palpatine. I'm just saying
I know,
you could have made it work if Episode 8 is done correctly. So the issue with
but they,
Palpatine in 9 is not 9's fault. It's 8's.
but it is. But 8 came out, so you can't say that they should have retroactively added him. Like
I'm not saying
they,
that. I'm just saying
but
that the
they,
issues that people have with Episode 9 aren't issues with Episode 9. They're issues that were created by Episode 8, which is
yes,
why
but
Episode 8 on the outside may be a good, fun, entertaining movie, but it was a franchise killer. It took every major plot point that they set up in Episode 7 and was like, oh, you guys want to know who Rey's parents is? Oh, you guys want to know who Snoke is? Oh, you guys want to know how the First Order got created? Oh, you guys want to know all these things? And just said, nope, we're not doing that. That's stupid. Captain
well,
Phasma, who's that? We're going to kill her without her ever explaining anything.
well, well, there's always those like weird one-offs. Like Boba Fett
Leia
earlier
turned into
was a
fucking
one-off.
Mary Poppins and is able to float through the vacuum of
All right.
space using the Force while
Skywalking,
she's unconscious. That was dumb.
Skywalking thing too is bad, right? And we'll get on to the other lists that
And
we
then
have.
the
But
last
like,
point of why Episode 8's the worst thing ever, it's supposed to be the Skywalker saga. And then at the end of
fair,
Episode 8, they're all dead. Every single one of them is
fair.
dead.
But it's also she's the last Jedi, is she not? So
No, that's not what the Episode 8 was about. Luke Skywalker was the last Jedi.
I'm saying, so
He
he's dead.
dies.
Yeah.
You said she.
Sorry, I meant he. I was getting
Okay.
confused with 9 and he. But I still think, as a director or writer, you have to go off of what you have from the previous movie, regardless.
Yes.
So I think that is still the writer slash director's fault for
But
making Palpatine a thing.
think about what you just said, and think about how Episode 8 killed every plot point that was set up in Episode 7.
Sure, but like
So it's
it still
Episode
starts.
eight's fault. It was already derailed. Episode 9 just
Yeah.
tried to put it back on the track, and they didn't do a very good job.
See, that's where it is. They shouldn't have put it back on the rails. They should just
So where do
went
you go?
with the
So
rails
it's
that was
not
going.
about the Skywalkers anymore, and you just keep on going off this random tangent and just do
No, well,
nothing when it's supposed to be the Skywalker saga. Like, what do we?
you still have the Skywalker saga in the sense of you have Kylo Ren, right, who is a Skywalker,
But you just
right?
said you want him to be a big bad. So how can it be a Skywalker saga if you leave him as the bad guy?
Why can't it be? Why can't he be bad?
Because it's a hero's journey, AJ. That's how this shit works.
Yeah, but that's just you're just having it's a different Skywalker. Like
No.
in the comics, right? It isn't there a bad Skywalker and that's not canonical, right?
I mean, maybe.
So like it just makes sense for just do that.
But
Oh,
enough
we
of that
we
one. That one's
just great.
trash. What's your fifth worst movie of all time?
Ooh, all right. So I love this character so much, as you can see by one of many pops that I have. But the Flash movie that recently came out, um, I left movie theaters with Abby seeing that, and I was like, this might be the worst superhero movie I have ever seen in my life. I was very upset, especially because he is my favorite, like I said, favorite superhero. Um, was super disappointed. Saw all the reviews. I was like, "Yep, makes sense." Like they just totally bombed it, and like makes sense, right? Because they're
But
redoing their DC universe and all that
yeah, like,
stuff.
but what were the pain points besides like obviously bad CGI?
Terrible CGI. Barry Allen is not Barry Allen, right? Like he's so whiny. He's
He never
such
feels very
like
smart.
yes, and right. So he's a crime scene analyst, right? So he sees all this stuff, right? Crime scenes, and like he's a whiny baby. It doesn't fit, right? And it's
Also,
so frustrating.
the story of Flashpoint, it's such a cool story, and I could tell that they
Yeah,
wanted to use it. I just don't feel like the Man of Steel storyline was like the best way to use Flashpoint. Like I felt like there was so many better ways they could have adapted it.
yeah. What I was kind of hoping was so in the comics, right? The Flashpoint, right? The Reverse Flash is the big bad, right? He's the one that causes everything, and he's the one that kills Barry's mom, and then Barry comes back in time to try and save his mom, kind of thing, right? From dying. Um, and I just felt like yeah, like it was the way they set it up was so just annoying, and the fact of having two Barry Allens, right? Great, like I love it, but like you superimposed one of his heads onto just a random actor acting like Barry Allen, and the CGI was awful,
It was
and
bad. They also rushed the the Breaking Bad of him becoming the bad
yeah,
version of
bad
Flash.
guy,
That
yeah,
that was so rushed. It happened in like 30 seconds. You're like, I get what you did. It doesn't
yes.
make a whole lot
All
of
that
sense.
all that being said, I have rewatched the movie since then, and I've come to kind of like it a little bit more. I do, yes, Ezra Miller was a terrible choice to have him, be the Flash after everything that happened, right, with legal issues and all that stuff. I think they should have just recasted him. But um, I do like the little plot point with him and his mom. I think that is kind of like a little good redemptive, type story where he can, kind of come to closure and all that stuff. Um, so I've come to kind of like it a little bit more. But yeah, it's one of my top five least favorite movies of all time, just because it's
Yeah.
my favorite superhero, and they just totally ruined it.
Yeah, it's
So
not great. You take Michael Keaton out of that movie, and it's not watchable,
correct.
in my mind. All right,
Yeah.
moving on to number four for me, and this one is a pretty obvious one. The Last Airbender movie, and
Yeah.
we can start off with the obvious of where this went bad. Why the heck are we hiring M. Night Shyamalan, a thriller movie director, to
Yeah.
direct an action kids movie? It
Fair.
was doomed from the start. And the worst part of the whole movie is like we don't have to get into the acting. The acting's only so-so. I mean, there's a lot of child actors. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of bad things to expect. It was how they did the bending. In the show, they made the movie look like they were doing choreographed dances to do the bending, and it was just
Yeah.
like this is just not it. It's not it.
Yeah.
Like bending is supposed to be more based off like different martial arts
Martial
style,
arts.
and karate, and
Yeah.
how you like used each style of bending is actually based off of a different style of karate, based off not karate,
Yeah.
martial arts. I want to say that. It's based off a different, and like air is very flowy, whereas like earth is very stompy, and then they were just doing choreographed dances, and it was so
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. Right.
Hold on, we lost you for a second. Nope.
Incoming call. You hear me now?
Oh, yeah, you're back.
All right. Sorry, had an incoming call from the brother. Um, but yeah, not the writing wasn't great, right? Like you said, the acting wasn't great, but you kind of expect that with some childhood actors, right?
Yeah.
And things like that. I also didn't like the casting as much.
Oh,
You know,
and I forgot the big thing. They called him Ong.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
can't get over
Just
that.
it's Aang. You gotta like I get the whole
It was only bad because
trying to
their excuse was they're like, "Oh, it's because it's an anime and they're not pronouncing it right." No, it's not.
no,
It's an
it's
American cartoon made by Nickelodeon. The
yeah,
way they said it on the show is the way it was supposed to be. It's not based off any
yeah,
source material. It was written straight to TV. So they just
yeah,
completely botched that.
yeah. I will say that there was two actors that I liked casting wise. I thought was it Dev Patel, right, who played Zuko. I thought
Yeah.
he was pretty good, or like a good fit, right? And then his uncle too, I thought was pretty good.
Yeah.
Um, those are the only two that I was like, okay, like I like that as a casting. Uh, Everything else.
Yeah. Hot garbage. All right. Let's hear your number 4, AJ. What you got?
Sorry, say that again.
I said, let's hear your number 4. What do you got?
Number four, sticking with the superhero themed,
Gonna be a lot of superhero movies
Batman,
on this list.
Batman and Robin. Um, I don't know. Have you ever watched Batman and Robin?
See, when I saw you put that on there, it hurt me a little bit. I'm aware that this is a terrible movie, but as a kid,
Uh-huh.
I watched this at least 50 times.
It is easily the worst out of the four. It like is just so bad. The whole use the Mastercard. You know, it's the only one that I use kind of thing. Like just showing off. Like, all right, Mastercard paid us. You know, put their credit card in the movie, and it just the villains that they have awful with having Mr. Freeze,
Mr.
and
Freeze.
it's just like so awful. The the like fake 60s like weird lights and all that stuff, and the weird Gotham
It
being
was definitely a movie where they were just trying to use as many like special effects as they could, and things
yeah,
looked cool, and like set designs were over the top, and cool stuff was created. But my general thing was it's probably the farthest away from Batman that you could actually get.
yeah, yeah,
They made him more like Iron Man, where he was all just gadgets and tools.
gadgets,
And
yeah,
the basis of Batman is supposed to be the world's greatest detective, and he did not do any detective work in that movie at all.
yeah. But I will say, most famously, they did give us bat nipples, which was something that the world has never seen since. So
I wanted the bat costume with the nipples and the crotch. That I wanted it on all the leather. I thought it was so cool.
so stupid. But yeah, George Clooney. Yeah, I feel like that's one you definitely would want back.
Yeah, it's just the farthest portrayal away from Batman out of any Batman portrayal we've gotten by far.
100%. 100%.
Um, okay, next on my list, what I was gonna say superhero movie, but I got another one after this, so I can't say that yet.
Okay. Okay.
Wonder Woman 1984, because let me put it this
See,
way: my dad is someone who just likes basic movies, action movies. He just wants a simple
uh-huh.
plot. He wants explosions. He wants a bad guy going against a good guy. I made him watch that movie, and at the end of it, he looks at me and goes, "Why'd you make me watch that? That was terrible." And I was like, "Yep, I share your sentiment. That was bad." Where to start with what went wrong? The bad graphics, the directing choice to have her run in slow motion on a treadmill
Yeah,
was bad. That was really bad
that's
because
fair.
it didn't look good. I got kind of what they were trying to go for to make her to look fast.
Hmm.
I mean, it looked like we were running in Twilight again. Like it wasn't. It was really bad. Maxwell Lord, actually a pretty cool character in the comics. Like he
Yeah,
does a lot of
yeah, yeah.
stuff. If you're a Marvel fan, he's basically runs an organization on par with like Roxxon, and he's entrenched in a lot of things. He seemed, I don't know, it just seemed like a very rushed villain attempt, and he just wanted glory and money and wealth. It was very shallow. I didn't
Hmm.
enjoy really bringing back Steve Trevor. Like
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
I didn't think that was necessary. It definitely was one of the better parts of the movie because Chris Pine's a great actor, so it was
Yeah.
nice having him in there just for that. What else? They did try to introduce comic book stuff in that movie and then just did it terribly. So like
Yeah.
her flying with the golden lasso, she was lassoing clouds, I believe, in the movie. Um,
Yeah.
this is far off from what she does in the comics. She has an invisible jet originally, and then in recent versions, she can just fly. So the whole
Yeah. I
lassoing
feel like,
of clouds and lightning was that was an interesting take on her flying abilities for sure.
yeah, I feel like you can't, like, obviously in movies, it just doesn't work being like, oh, I got an invisible jet, and you just see her flying. I always
I
think
mean,
back
yeah,
to like
invisible jet is it's a pretty stupid thing to have. I
I always
get
think
that.
of like the Family Guy episode where they do that, and like Superman's flying, and she's like, oh, I'm in the bathroom, and then like, if you haven't seen it, it's funny.
Like it
Um,
could work. Like the flying could work, but you could tell that they didn't want to introduce her ability to fly because they didn't introduce it in the first one. So they didn't just want
yeah.
to make her fly. But why use a lasso on lightning and clouds? It's
I didn't hate this movie. It wasn't the greatest thing, but like I was like, it's like a C to me. Like it's nothing. It's just average, right? And I think you and I and a lot of
what
comic
makes
book nerds have like come to like be like, all right, these movies had to be A or better, right? Like
yeah,
we
but
had to
what made it
like.
so bad was it was also boring. Like it was
So
like I
I
put
didn't
this on
mind.
par with like the Eternals.
Oh, see, I like the Eternals.
I
I
like the
think I
Eternals more, but just in terms of like it was way too long of a movie for what it needed to be. Like at least 30 minutes of that movie could have been cut and thrown away.
See, I liked. I didn't mind Maxwell Lord. I get the pettiness, right? Because he just wants power, right? So they didn't obviously introduce Lex Luthor, or they already have Lex Luthor technically right in that timeline, whatever. So like I get like not wanting to make him kind of like that, but like wanting him to be egotistical, kind of like that too, and wanting power. So I got that. The cheetah CGI was awful,
It was
but
rushed too.
I still enjoyed her. Was it Kristen Wiig, right?
Yeah, Kristen Wiig.
Um, yeah, I liked her as the cheetah. I thought she did a pretty good portrayal kind of thing, right? But yeah, not the greatest movie. Um, for number three for me, I just watched this movie recently on was it Netflix? Um, Trapped, another M Night Shyamalan movie. Um,
He
when
stuck
I
to his realm.
say what?
He stuck to his realm. It's a horror thriller.
Yeah, but it wasn't a horror. It was supposed
It's
to be like
suspense thriller, right?
yeah, but like the whole time you're like, for those who haven't seen it, right? It's a serial killer, right? He goes to a concert with his daughter, right? He basically he has a family and all this stuff, and he goes to a concert, and the whole concert itself is a trap. They find out that the serial killer, right, is going to this concert. They don't know who it is or whatsoever, but they know he's there. And it's about them trying to find the serial killer based off of, I guess, little tips that they've gotten of what he looks like, or his potential personality or build or whatever.
Also, just a terrible plan by the cops. We have this guy
Yeah,
trapped in a building with 20,000 people, so we're just going
yeah.
to walk around and hope that we recognize him.
It,
What they also don't know what he looks like.
it's so funny too because like in one of the last scene, like he's at a concert in an arena, right? So with thousands of cameras, right? So you're expecting cops, right, to be watching every camera, right? And like this guy, like Josh Hartnett, which I actually thought did a pretty good job of like being a serial killer, like that mentality or vibe or whatever that you see in other portrayals, but like he like swipes,
Sorry.
yeah, because he's creepy looking. Right, he acts creepy, but like he like swipes an ID card from an employee, and then just like is able to like go to like area restricted areas, and it's like you'd think like if people are
Are the
watching
cops actually
cameras,
here, or are they?
yeah, like you'd see somebody swiping in, yeah, that just wearing like regular clothes and not like the purple uniforms that they're all wearing, right? And then he like in one of them, like he swipes into like this area where there's actual cops like doing a debrief, and he's like, "Oh, I'm just getting the coffee here," kind of thing, like acting like an employee. It's like he's wearing
But just
like a flannel shirt. Like, what?
the
How does this make sense?
dumbest plan to trap a serial killer in a building when you don't know what he looks like.
Yeah, and like, oh yeah, like this is smart to like trap him, like you said, with like 20,000 people. Yeah, sure. There's like I think they said there was like only 3,000 males there. They knew like it was a male serial killer,
So I
but
guess
it's
that
like,
narrows it down a little bit. 3,000 people is a heck of a lot of people to just
yeah,
randomly interrogate.
it just made no sense plot wise, and it was frustrating because I'm like I kind of like this serial killer, but at the same time I'm like this is like just the it's ridiculous how he's like getting away in like the in the arena type thing.
Yeah,
He like ends up trapping the lead singer somehow, and it just ensues from there. That's just awful.
that's fair for me. My number two, I'm bringing this one up because AJ wanted to use this one as well. It's Morbius. Hot damn.
Yeah, it's just awful.
Well, we can start off with the first red flag for this movie. It was made by Sony, and what I mean by that is, for those of you
Yeah,
who don't know Sony's record with movies, they have three movies that have grossed over $1 billion. $1 billion is obviously like the big mark for a big successful blockbuster movie. All three of those movies were actually made by Marvel. They're the new Spider-Man Tom Holland movies, which Sony is only in charge of distribution of. So Sony's three
yeah,
biggest movies of all time, not even made by Sony. So that was the first big red flag. But Sony's trying to do this whole Spider-Man villain universe. But the thing that sucks about Morbius is they try to make him a good guy. He kind of is.
hmm
But if you know the character, he is kind of this anti-hero type. He's
yeah,
not really a hero. He's not really a bad guy either. He controls vampires and he's very much in that underworld, but he's not like doing bad stuff. He's not like trying to take over the world or anything like that. He very much lives in
yeah,
his corner of the Marvel universe and he does his supernatural stuff.
yeah.
He has encounters with Blade and Spider-Man, but he's not like I don't know. He's not like
He's
nefarious.
he's not somebody that I would choose to build a potential like franchise over, like in the sense of like this would only be a one-off movie. I feel
Yeah,
like you're
but it was also
like
like
he's
if they
not.
were gonna do it, I wanted them to go more the realm of like him becoming a vampire and then ruling over the other vampires. But instead, it was just him and his buddy who gets cured of whatever
Yeah,
paralysis that he has and weird
I
dance scenes and random fights in the
that was
subway.
that's just what comes to mind too. So Matt Smith, right, Matt Smith
Yeah,
being
he's a great actor. I
the
like
bad
Matt
guy.
Smith,
Yeah,
but gosh,
him
that was
him
bad.
him and his little dance montage was terrible. I will say I did like that. I thought Jared Leto was a good casting in the sense of being Morbius, right? Because he does play those weird roles. And
But they
the
didn't
only
really
thing
make him weird. I don't know.
yeah, but the only other thing that like I liked was that they didn't try to CGI his face into like looking like Morbius the entire time. It was only
That's
when he like
fair.
really raged, right, that he got that like weird distorted face that you see in the comics. Otherwise, they like just kept it just being Jared Leto, and they didn't like screw up the CGI that way. But yeah,
Yeah,
otherwise,
it was just this
but
weird line that they tried to walk the whole movie by
yeah,
trying to make him an actual good guy, but then him just leaving a trail of dead bodies behind him everywhere he went. But it's not
Yeah.
even done in like the anti-hero fashion of like Venom or the Punisher, who are like actually killing bad guys. No, he's going around and straight up eating people, and everyone was just
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's cool. He's Morbius. He's a good doctor, so he can
It,
do what he wants." Like what?
it would
No.
it would have been one thing if it was like, all right, he's like trying to control his rage, and like the first few were accidents kind of thing, but like I feel like he just didn't at all kind of
Yeah,
thing.
he's just eating people, and everyone was like, "It's okay
Yeah.
because you're a doctor." It's like, no, it's
Yeah.
not. It's not okay. And then, of course,
Not,
the best line: "It's Morbin time."
yeah. Yeah. Awful. I, I mean, actually, it's a fantastic line, but it's also awful.
Oh yeah.
Um, my number two is by uh, Zack Schneider, who I feel like he made so many good movies to like start off his career, and then once Justice League came out, that kind of was just the downfall of Schneider.
Well, we don't really get into that. Technically, not his movie in the end, but
Fair. Well, the remake was actually good, or the
yeah,
his Schneider cut, I thought was actually pretty good. But Rebel Moon, I don't know if you've watched it, and on Netflix.
I watched
Um,
it. I didn't think it was bad. It just didn't really do anything for me.
that's the thing is like he spent a couple hundred million, right? Like this was like the big thing Netflix was coming out with because Zack Schneider, the legendary director, did 300, which was I thought fantastic movie, right? And then you get this piece of work where it was so like the plot was so easy to just like figure out in like 2 seconds. Like kind of like coincided with Star Wars, where it's like, all right, the rebels, or not the rebels, the evil empire, right, is
Well,
attacking, the rebels, right? Like
I
this,
told you
this,
the full story. He wrote this and pitched it to Disney slash Star Wars
yeah,
to be his own Star Wars trilogy, and they said no. So he makes it
which is smart.
anyways, and you can like it doesn't. After they said no, he didn't like change the movie at all. Like
No,
it's
there's literally
basically
the
Star Wars.
sword. The sword is a lightsaber, basically. It lights
Yeah,
up. It's on fire. You get the like the chosen one and the girl.
I'm more surprised they
Um,
didn't sue the crap out of him for
well,
doing the same thing.
I bet they were like, this probably cost so much money, and it probably flopped after the first one. That like, why do we care?
Yeah, I know the second one came out. As I said, I haven't seen that one either.
I've not seen it, but it just one of the maybe one of the worst movies, just because it's the CGI is kind of cool, or the action, right? But that's its only saving grace. Otherwise, it is the writing isn't great, the acting's okay. It's just so predictable. It just I just did not like it at all.
All right, and back to my worst movie, which I kind of touched on earlier. I kind of want people to go watch it because it's actually one of those movies that you can like watch and like laugh at, and it's not that long. It's like hour 30 minutes, so you can literally just put it on, get a little drunk,
Hmm.
laugh at it. It's called Time Cut. It's terrible. It stars one of the kids from Outer Banks, Kiara. I
Okay,
don't know her name in real life.
haven't seen it.
Kiara. It's okay. So the plot of this movie is, as I said, Halloween slasher time travel. So on Halloween 20 years ago, four kids in the town were murdered by some masked killer.
Okay,
And what you find out is it's our main character's sister is one of the four who was murdered. But
okay,
the only reason why our main character is alive is because her sister got murdered. So her parents had the original daughter. She gets murdered when she's like 18, about to go to college. So they start IVF, have another kid. And
got it.
right off the bat, you can tell the weird stuff is happening. The parents still have the original daughter's room set up in the house untouched 20 years later. And they have another kid at this point.
Uh-huh.
Weird. Like
Weird. Okay.
that's like really
I
like you have another kid, so you're like supposed to be like moving on with your life, and you clearly are not based off what's going on in this room here.
it's weird, but I don't think it's unheard of.
Not unheard of, but that was first weird. So they
Uh,
they apparently then they go to her grave every year
mm,
on still doing it every year 20 years later. So they're doing
mm,
great about letting go. Uh,
yeah.
And while she's there, she walks into a barn and in the barn just randomly finds a time machine on the ground and goes back in time.
Yeah, okay. That's what I was waiting for. Like
Yeah.
just a random like how did you go back in time? Just a random
a,
barn.
There's just a couple of boxes in a barn, and then it just opened up and it was a time machine, and she just went back in time. So
Yeah, that's
she's
that's a
now
little
back in
weird.
time trying to save all the people who are going to get murdered. And the best part that made this movie so bad, I'm watching it with Sam, my fiance, and Bree, her sister, and I called the murderer about 20 minutes into the movie, but I said it joking
Mhm.
because I thought it was a joke. The murderer is one of the boys
Uh-huh.
from the past who then goes into the future, invents a time machine, and then goes back and murders the people because they bullied him.
Interesting. Okay.
I knew it because in like the first scene that you meet this kid, all he says is like, "I'm really good at physics," and I was like, "That's the murderer." He goes into the future, builds a time machine, and comes back. And it actually happened. You get the reveal that the murderer is the future self, and you get the moment where the kid sees himself in the future, and you're like, "Oh!" And as soon as that happened, I was like, "I was kidding when I said that's what was going to happen," and I think it makes it 20 times worse that it actually happened.
That's super interesting.
And
The
then what
the
one of
fact
the
that
worst parts of the movie is, as I mentioned, time paradox. They don't give a fuck about time travel rules in this movie at all. So this chick who has now gone into the past to save her
Mhm.
sister saves her sister, but when you think about it, the only reason why she is alive is because her sister got murdered. So that's already a time paradox right there. She only is born
Interesting.
because her sister gets murdered. So if her sister doesn't get murdered, which she then prevents, theoretically she should never be born.
Yes.
Yes, time paradox. Then that's when I'm saying they start mixing time travel rules. There is a singular timeline, but yet the events in the past kind of create new timelines, but they kind of don't because they can go to the future and they can go back to that point. So she ends up
And
going back to the present, murders the killer in present day, and then decides that she doesn't want to live in present day anymore. So she goes back in time again and then starts dating the murderer's younger version. Immediately after 5 minutes ago, she murdered the murderer's older self. So literally kills the guy in present day, then goes back in time and dates his younger self. Weird.
interesting. I gotta wrap this up real quick. Abby's calling me.
That's fine.
I'll be back.
You'll
You
be
want to close
back.
it out? You want to close it out?
Well, we'll close it out now. For those of you who didn't know, AJ's number one bad movie of all time was Madam Web. Pretty self-explanatory. Movie was hot garbage. Uh, Only saving grace was Sydney Sweeney, and that was about it. All right, that's all from us. We now have to go do other things, but we'll see you guys on the next one.